This is the Weigh In podcast by Benoit Chestnut.
And Sebastian Romero.
And on this week's Takedown Thursdays, presented by the Weigh In podcast, we talk about the big piece of news surrounding should Gable Steveson be allowed to wrestle college? They're saying with his resume, should he be allowed to wrestle college? Another thing we're going to step into is number one versus number two. So as I'm going to talk here, another thing we're going to get up is my partner is back on the podcast for right now, and we're going to let him get in and update you guys on those details.
Yes, guys, I'm back. Me, Sebastian Romero, I'm back. And now let me explain to you why I haven't been on here so much. So as you guys know that now I work. So I work every day and I'm always busy working now because I work now. And I can't always be here on the podcast. So times that you don't see me, keep watching because either way, if I'm working and I can't be on the podcast, that what Tesla is gonna still give you videos every single day. But whenever I'm off and I don't work, I'm gonna be back and I'm gonna keep you updated and give you the best videos with that one chestnut.
Well, not every single day, our posts are Tuesday, Thursday, but let's go ahead and let's step into this. So, partner, you've been away for a little bit. Let me catch you up on the wrestling craze. Gable Steveson, Olympic level wrestler and world champ, former WWE star, joined the WWE. Also went to not wrestle, but also went to play for the Buffalo Bills. It didn't end up panning out, and then he decided second semester he's going to come back and wrestle. And many are saying he shouldn't have been allowed to wrestle. With that being said, where do you land on this Gable Steveson news? Should somebody who left has the years of eligibility, where do you look at the news and his resume? Where do you fall on this?
For me, because technically it's like he's doing three sports, I feel like if you do three, I think that's a lot. I think you should
Well, he
focus
wasn't. Well, he
on.
wasn't doing them all at the same time. It was kind of like, okay, he left college. He was with the WWE. When he left the WWE, then he was with the Buffalo Bills, and now he's back to college. So it was not done at the same time, but it was done simultaneously, one after another. Just keep that
Mhm.
in mind.
All right, but what I think is he should do what he loves. I know he went from college wrestling to WWE and then to the Buffalo Bills, but he did three different things of sports, but I think he should stick to what he loves. If he loves wrestling, college wrestling, stay there and live your passion until you become
You run out of
professional.
eligibility.
What happened?
Would you run out of eligibility? College wrestling, you only have so many years of eligibility before you exhaust all your eligibility and no longer can college wrestle.
Mhm. But then he also could go to professional wrestling for all states.
There's not really a level of professional wrestling. They're trying to come out with it with leagues like claw wrestling. They're trying to build it, but it's not quite there. So it's more or less, you go to Olympics or you go to, the Worlds. So there's not really a set professional like the NFL, NBA. Just keep that in mind.
But yeah, I think he should do whatever makes him happy, and hopefully he chooses the career if it's still wrestling or WWE or Buffalo, whatever he chooses. Hopefully everything goes good for him. But I think if he started doing wrestling, I think he should stay doing that because he's more succeeding in wrestling because he's been doing
Yeah,
that
but
for
that's
so
the
many
topic
years.
of debate. The topic of debate is everybody saying, should he be allowed to come back? He left to professional pro wrestling. Then he left to the not really left to. He left pro wrestling and tried out with the Bills, and then now he's coming back saying, "Hey, that didn't all work out." But the people are saying, "Well, this is a Olympic champ, world champ. Should he be allowed to still college wrestle?"
To be honest, I'm biased. I'm like 50-50 because I understand why some people want him to come back and some people don't. Because he technically left wrestling and now he's doing pro wrestling and then he's doing football. So I don't know. For me, I feel like whatever he was best at, he should stick to. So let's say he was best at wrestling, he should do wrestling. Or if he was best at pro wrestling, do
Well, I
that. The same thing
mean,
with
he didn't
football.
get a lot of matches under pro wrestling. He was best at wrestling, but it was like he wanted to shift his focus. He liked WWE. But when you look at that and you say, okay, this guy left, this guy did this, he got a world title, he got all this stuff, and now all of a sudden you're sitting here saying, should this guy be allowed to be in college wrestling because they felt like he's at a level of professionalism where they're like he shouldn't be allowed to college wrestle.
Yeah,
If
because
you ask
I don't
me, my
understand
good.
how he went from real wrestling to WWE. That's all fake. That's not real wrestling.
Well, I think that's a it depends on the topic of debate. Obviously, it's not. It's true. It's entertainment. So
Yeah.
you can go to that it's entertainment. But one of the things we look at and we can say definitively here is like, okay, this guy leaves. This guy is at the top of Olympic wrestling, top of world wrestling, and then comes back and says, "I'm going to win an NCAA title." If you're a wrestling fan here and you understand, look at it this way: how would you feel if Henry Cejudo went out now and says, "I'm going to college wrestle"? When he was at the top of his wrestling, never went to college, says, "I'm going to college wrestle." Think about that, and that gives you a solid answer. If you wouldn't let Henry Cejudo do it, you're letting Gable Steveson leave, come back, and say, "Hey, he can still do this." Like he has a platform, and I'm not saying he doesn't have a platform, but I'm saying if you wouldn't allow Henry Cejudo to do it, why would you allow Gable? Why would you let this go on like this? I understand what he brings from Minnesota, and he helps Minnesota, but you have to say to yourself, Henry Cejudo never college wrestled, never even went on the mat. Great Olympic
Mhm.
level wrestler, was under Tom Brandt. Was under Iowa and the Brands. Never wrestled, but really trained under the Brands and really had his time there. If you wouldn't let Henry Cejudo do it, why you let Gable do it? And that's a
Yeah,
good
that's
question to
true.
ask yourself. And speaking of Iowa, they have a dual meet this Friday coming up that they will be facing the number one Penn State as they're the number two. So the weigh-in we have analyzed some things that we thought were toss up matches here. We talked about 133 with Drake Orella, 149 with Parco, and then we talked about 165. So those are the three matches that are crucial. Iowa must secure wins at least two of these matchups. If they can sweep all three, that'll be significantly increase their chances of winning the match. And I say that because those are those three weights where they're toss ups. They're not leading one way or another. They're toss ups, and that's what I was gonna need. They're gonna need those toss ups to kind of lead them in this dual meet.
And some for me, something that was um really cool about wrestling that I saw is Penn State thrives on bonus points, especially from Bartlett 141 and Starstruck
Staraki, Carter Staraki, 184.
184. And then Kerfleet.
Kerfleet. Kerfleet at 285. We talked about Kerfleet in the 285 weight class shakeup. So yeah, you're right. If you're Iowa, you got to minimize those bonus points from Penn State. You have to minimize that. You're right. Bartlett thrives on it. Staraki thrives on it, and Kerfleet thrives on it. So it's going to be very interesting with those bonus points
Yeah,
and what happens with the Penn State.
yeah, because Iowa wrestlers in these matchups must fight to avoid giving up the majors, technical fouls, or pins. Even turning a likely loss in a decision can save team points.
Yeah, I understand exactly what you're saying. So every point's going to matter when you're Iowa here, because you can't give up. If you can give up a decision, give up a decision. A decision to a major is a totally different set of points. So you get 3 points, majors 4 points, tech is 5 points, and then you look at that pin at 6 points. If you can get Penn State to come away with those 3 points, that's going to be a keys to victory here, and that's what we're talking about. Iowa's keys to victory to winning this dual meet. And I think that's going to be the best place. So what one thing I think we can bring up very clearly here is Iowa's going to need to get bonus points where possible. You look at Teamer at 157. He's got to get it. You look at Stephen Buchanan at 197. They need to push for bonus points if Iowa wants to win. A major decision or better in these matchups could help make up for those points lost elsewhere. And that's why Teamer and Buchanan need to go out at their weights and get as bonus points if possible. Even if it's 4, 5, 6, you have to get something because if Iowa wants to win this dual meet, they need to get the points where possible. They got to get the points. They got to get them when they need them, where possible.
They also have to control the pace and score first. Against Penn State's explosive wrestlers, Iowa needs to score first and dictate the tempo. Wrestlers like Barco, that's 149, and Kennedy, that's 174, should focus on early attacks and hand fighting to keep their opponents on the defense.
Right. So that's going to be interesting at those two weights. Those are very big defensive guys that can get it done. And I think that Parko's got to get the points, up front. It's a toss-up match. And if Parko could come out of there with bonus points, it's gonna help the difference. It's gonna really help the difference for Iowa. The one thing that we talked about on this podcast is what we talked about before was that third period, how we talked about that 30 seconds to finish. That is going to play a difference in this dual meet. Iowa's going to have to stay tough in the third period because Penn State wrestlers are known for their late scores. They are probably one of the best teams that you look at that 30 seconds to finish, that last minute. They score a lot of points when they need to late. So Iowa's going to need to focus on, being very mat aware, score when you can. If it's hard out, it's not it's hard in, hard out. Don't give up nothing. Fight for every point. If you got to scramble to get it, scramble to get it. Remember when you're in your scrambles, you have to get height and really work on your scrambles because there's a lot of times they can get a leg and you're rolling around and you don't get height and that Penn State guy does. It could be the difference between a pin or back points or even a 3-point takedown. So the real difference here that we have that Iowa has to do here is try to close out those matches in the third period if they've got bonus, keep your bonus. Don't give up your bonus. If you can get that major, don't give up the major to a decision. You're going to need every point you can get, and that's one thing Iowa needs to focus on. Keeping yourself tough out there, using your conditioning a little more, and trying to savor that that third period, Penn State is going to be throwing everything, even the kitchen sink, at this for this matchup because they're going to want to try to make you lose those extra points you're going to get here.
And if that happens, it will be a upset at 184 pounds or 285 pounds.
Possible. It's possible.
If Gabe Arnold or Ferrari at 184 can push Starachoi or
Staraki or Cooter.
Staraki or Cooter can keep it tight against Kiraki, Iowa has a chance to flip the script. Even keeping these matches to a decision helps their chances. If Iowa exudes these strategies, they can pull off the upset and take number one Penn State.
So I think you're right. 184 and 285 are those weight classes where you say yes. That's going to be the interesting one. That 184 and that 285 is upset level. And I understand you guys as viewers are probably like, I see here Sebastian's on his phone. We're going to address that just real quickly. We wrote scripts for this video and this takedown of 285. So we worked on that. So that's why you're seeing that because we're reading off of our script. What we thought, this is what we think. This isn't something from a news site or anything like that. This is straight our own work. And that's one thing that we were talking about was that that 184 and the 285 could potentially be upset weight classes. And if it is, that's the best way to do this. And that's one thing that we need to do is these weight classes. That's what Iowa needs to do at these weight classes. And they need to make sure that they get it done at these weight classes because it's going to be very interesting to what happens. to what goes on, to what, if Iowa can go through and get these potential upsets at these weight classes, that is one thing that we could be able that is going to be very interesting. When you look at that, when you look at what goes on and what doesn't, that's going to play the difference at that 184 285, because if Iowa can get these key points done, the keys to win, I'll run through them one more time. Win the toss ups, 133, 149 to 165. Minimize the bonus points if you're Iowa. Get the bonus points where possible. We talked about Teamer and Buchan, 157, 197. You got to get it done. Control the pace and score first. It's going to be the difference, that 3-point takedown you get on top. And what's going to make a huge difference is these riding time points. They've got to get out and get these riding time points. And another one, they got to stay tough in the third period. We brought that up, that Iowa's going to have to stay tough in the third period, because Penn State scores a lot of third period points, and they have to stay tough. And another one we really talk about is that 184 285. Gabe Arnold or Ferrari, depending on who's put out, is got to take, at 184, Arnold and Ferrari's got to get that upset. And 285, they got to get it done. They've got to get the upset at those two weights. And this is a way where Penn State can possibly lose the dual meet. This is something where knocking off Penn State is just a long mile of saying this is, does this start the end of the Kill Sanderson dominant era? And as we already talked about on episodes previous, the Oklahoma State University Cowboys, what did they mean towards getting at Kill Sanderson at Nationals? But in today's episode, we're more, focusing on that Iowa upset win. And I think that Iowa's got the best chances to get it done. And they're what we key labeled. You as wrestling fans can weigh in the comments and tell us if you feel differently. But I feel that 185, 285, and 184, excuse me, and 285 are upset weight classes, because that's possible. That's why we labeled 133, 165, and 149 as toss-ups, because those could go either way. And I think if they land the way of Iowa, it's going to be very interesting. Really, we only depict they're going to get two of those, but if they can sweep it, now we're looking good. So you look at this and say, this is a dual meet you're going to want to see. If you're not watching it, you're going to want to see it. If Iowa does what I think they're going to do, it's going to come down to it. It's going to be a good one. I don't say it's going to be as good as, every time it's Penn State, Ohio State, when it used to be, a couple years ago, where it used to come down to like the heavyweight. But I do think that this match is going to be interesting, and that when it comes down to that 184, 285, it's going to make the difference, in a whole and holistic of the dual meet.
Yes.
I feel that that's a lot of what's going to go on in this dual meet is going to play. That's going to play the role. That 184, 285 is going to really play the role. And that's something that's going to be able to be very different. And that will be a very big difference for the dual meet. So, as my
Yes.
partner Sebastian, how did you feel about, our keys to victory here for Iowa, the Iowa Hawkeyes, I should say, excuse me.
I think it was really good, and it was a great matchup. I think it was great, and I think whenever they do end up playing again, it's gonna be a
You
great
mean wrestling?
rivalry. Huh?
When they do end up wrestling.
Oh yeah, when they wrestle, it's gonna be a great rivalry, and it's gonna be a good fight.
Well, I wouldn't in any way say Penn State Iowa is a rivalry. Penn State's rivalry is Ohio State, but it is always a good dual meet. It is always a good dual meet with those two teams. I mean, back in when Bo Nickel was wrestling, Bo Nickel had displayed all over there at Iowa in Culver Hawkeye Arena, and I think that's something you could say that Penn State has always performed well when it came to Iowa, and you does that play a role? Yes, I do believe that plays a role. I do believe that's the difference maker here in this match is that Penn State has always performed very well, and now you look at if whether can Penn State perform well again in Iowa that's looking to get a victory out of this, that's looking to take down the number one Penn State. And I think that's something that's going to be very interesting to how this match phase out in dual meet.
Yeah, because Penn State wrestlers and Iowa wrestlers, they're both good wrestlers from Penn State and Iowa, but they have different strategies. So whatever the coaches teach them or the strategies, they both have different strategies. But when they get on the mat, you have to wrestle, and then whoever has the better strategies are gonna take it. And they're both good teams, Iowa and Penn State. So this wrestling match or duel, like you said, it's gonna be really good. And for for Penn State being number one, and then Iowa being what number is Iowa?
I was the number two.
I was number two. If Iowa does get the upset and beat Penn State, then Iowa could be number one and be the best college wrestling.
Yeah, it's definitely a way to go about the dual meet. Iowa in an upset will be huge. You know, when you look at, Iowa being able to get their keys to victories and taking down Penn State, it's going to be really big. And I do believe that when you look at this Iowa team, the difference here is going to be, getting the wins where they can, minimizing those bonus points and getting things done the way they can. And it's going to play a huge role. I definitely think it's going to I hope it's a good match, but I definitely think it's going to be a good match. I think it's going to be one that's going to really be a lot you can learn from. What we talked about is on Tuesday's episode, we talked about Israel Aldasanya doing his best self, and now we're going to piggyback that into saying Iowa's got to be their best selves. They got to wrestle their best, wrestling, and if they can do that the ways we feel they're going to do, it could possibly be an upset by Iowa taking down the number one Penn State. And that's an Iowa Hawkeye fan's dream to go down and Penn State to go down. That would be like, wow, we beat Penn State. What does that do to those guys that are going to be trying to shoot for another national title? And then you have a strong, very strong Oklahoma State University Cowboy wrestling team that if they do their best wrestling, they can compete for a national title. So it really says a lot that this dual meet doesn't decide that, but you wonder what it does to Penn State if they end up losing to Iowa. What are the changes they're going to make moving forward if they do fall to Iowa in this dual meet?
Because Iowa, they're the underdog. So if they beat Penn State, it's gonna be awesome. Seeing the
Right.
Iowa fans, everybody celebrate and have their cheering on and have a great time that they won.
Yeah, that's definitely something we talked about. We did talk about that on Tuesday, being the underdog. And we're going to bring this and tie this into wrestling because Tuesday we weren't able to. It was our normal episode. Now this is our Takedown Thursday. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So, being the underdog means nothing. It doesn't matter what those Penn State guys are ranked. You got to do, like we said, your best wrestling, your best self. And you've got to go out there and put your best self on that mat, and that's why you have toss ups, you have matches you can win. You could have a lot of guys go out. Like one of the things is we talk about Rutgers is Dean Peterson. Dean Peterson went out and actually had an upset win against a higher ranked opponent, and that was absolutely the difference maker. Dean Peterson went and did what he had to do, and you look at when that happens, the difference making between all the wrestling that goes on. That these Iowa guys can do that. These Iowa guys have the potential to do so, and that's going to be the difference making in the event because if these Iowa guys do the wrestling I think they're going to do, the wrestling that is their best wrestling, you look
Yeah.
at what's Iowa best wrestling, and if they do that Iowa best wrestling, you could easily say to yourself, this is a match that can go either way. And if that is the case, it could be very interesting to how this dual meet can play out because there are a few ways this can go. So we talked about. I just brought up Dean Peterson, and Dean Peterson when Rutgers faced Penn State took down Lehida the number 6 in a huge way, 4-1. And when you look at that, Dean Peterson was the underdog. Dean Peterson went into that match as the number 19. So you talk about that's why I said on the last episode, it doesn't matter what somebody's rank. You know, he was the number 6. When you look at it, Luke was the number 6, and it didn't matter. Dean Peterson went in there and still beat him. And that's why I say, when you do your best wrestling, you can beat anybody. Even if this guy's a 3-time state champ, 4-time state champ, 1-time state champ, multiple-time Fargo place winner, or a Super 32 placer, you can beat him. It's all about you doing your best wrestling. Because if you get out there and you score a takedown and you get 2 turns, you get 2 4-point turns, and you look at it, now you're at about 8. You're at about 8 points, and then you have your takedown. So when you add in your takedown, you're at about 10 nothing. You go up there in college wrestling and you get those 4-point turns. You get 2 4-point turns. You put yourself at 8. Then you add your 3. Your 3 for that takedown you got. And now you look at that and you say you're really at about 11, 10, depending on, and I say 11 or 10 because you might not exactly get that 4-point turn. You may get 3 points. You may get a 4-point or 2. If you get any swipes will help you. And if you can go out there and lead heavy early, going up 10 nothing early and being able to do so, that's going to make the difference in any dual meet. And I think for Iowa, that's going to make the difference. So as we, come in on our time here and we've kind of got to the end of our episode here, I'm very well proud of, where, my partner's back and we're back to the regular scheduled program. And I
Yeah.
feel like I'm proud because of the breakdown we did of Iowa, Penn State, and our keys to victories for Iowa, I thought are correct in the right way. So, you can weigh in the comment section and tell me otherwise, but I think that is some of the best things. So for that, this is the weigh-in. And, as I've been saying in my episodes before, weigh it out, but I'll let Sebastian sign off first, then I'll give you the weigh-in out, and that is it.
So hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hope you guys are happy I'm back because I'm so excited to be back again in the way. And I missed this so much. And when I had opportunity to come back, I was like, I gotta do this because I know you guys love me and Benoit doing this every time we post. And I'm like, I'm happy to be blessed and alive and to be here to give you this video. So thank you so much for watching this video. Hope you always enjoy it. And when we keep posting, we'll always post. And thank you so much for making me be back here, Benoit.
Yes, yes. Thank you for coming back on.
You're
The
welcome.
podcast is back to the regularly scheduled program. The show must go on. And that is it for Takedown Thursdays. Weigh in out. Thank you for being on.